All right. We're now officially going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. The topic of this video is going to be: Is the Iraqi Dinar global reset a scam? My last time addressing this issue. So, without further ado, before we get started, really quick, I'm going to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. This is not securities advice. This is not tax, financial, or legal advice. Once again, any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Please keep in mind everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information. These are simply my opinions on the topic based upon credible research. All rights are reserved. Now, let's get into this. I wanted to address this. I've touched on this before in the past. Obviously, I still get these questions from time to time, but lately, it's a lot of trolls, which I'm going to always address. They're always saying, or there's people out there that say, because I pay attention to a lot of other channels out there. I have a very unique skill set. Unlike a lot of people, my YouTube channel, I just discovered, am subscribed to well over, nearly 1,000, not just content creators, but very large channels that throughout the years I've been able to follow. So I follow a plethora of information. I want to let you guys know the skill set, the credibility that I bring to the table. Many of you guys already know this, but for those newbies out there, this is why it's going to be my last time addressing this particular issue, hopefully, and I can bring a distinction between what are actual scams versus things that are legitimate. Just like when I talked about redemption education, which that's a whole separate discipline. Some call sovereignty. I don't use the term sovereign citizen type stuff. That's used as an umbrella term to try to discredit people. But there's a legitimate side, and then there's always other there. How do they say that there's two sides to every story, but then there's the truth. And I like to deal with just the actual truth. I have massive common sense, and I just deal with the truth, what I know. And if I'm wrong about something, I have updated you guys in the past on information. There's some things when I talk about history, by the way, which I would like to get into because February is Black History Month. Should be every month. Should not just be relegated to one month, in my opinion. By the way, that's one of the topics I've been meaning to cover for a while. I know some of you guys are wondering when are you going to cover, the reparations, for example. But I will hopefully down the road soon. I watched the documentary, which is neither here nor there, but just getting into there's many different opinions out there on various different subjects and topics, and I try to be centered as much as possible to the best of my ability. And I'm going to go over some things. This is some powerful information from my own personal experience to relate to the topic of this video. Is the Iraqi dinar global reset, or some call global currency reset, a scam? And in my opinion, I don't think that it is. First of all, let me get that out the way. No, I do not think, in my opinion, that is a scam. And I'm going to give you the reasons why. Many years ago, when I found out, because just like many people, I found out through word of mouth, and I didn't act on it until years after the fact. I originally remember from my memory, because I have a long time, good memory. I've been commended by relatives and close friends, by the way, for having a good memory. Some people out there I feel are more phenomenal. And I actually researched what that was, by the way. I have a specific type of memory. It's not necessarily just photographic memory, but there's another type. But I have a really good memory. And this, I remember back in 2006, the year specifically. there was these private meetings that I attended in the city of Detroit. They were by invitation only, things related to redemption education. And there was a gentleman there who I'm still in contact with to this day. I won't say the name. Someone's been around, and he shared this information back then. There were people involved, and I remember he said at the end of these private classes that I attended, by the way, it's by word of mouth, that you need to go to Chase Bank and get you some Iraqi dinar. And it used to just go over my head, to be honest with you. I was like, there's different things. I was just learning the information. This is something separate on a side note, I guess, or I looked at it as a form of an investment. So I didn't actually make my first purchase until 2011, but that was towards, I remember, the end of 2010. December sometime, I received a call from a friend of mine at the time, who I hope he's getting better. Last time I spoke to recently, I found out he was in some type of accident, I think on his motorcycle, car accident. He had been knowing about the dinar since 2003 and told me he actually had a conversation that went way back in Southfield, Michigan, when he was at the Guitar Center. By the way, I don't know if that's that location, if it's still around. I guess they not only sold guitars, but electrical equipment stuff dealing with like the music industry, stuff like that for DJs, people in that profession. And he told me he was having a conversation with someone and how he had found out he had called me. I remember specifically sometime back in December of 2010. I remember it was before the year 2010 ended, because I said, yeah, I heard about that dinar before. But I was kind of geeked up because he made it seem like it was getting ready to pop, which, just from like a lot of the intel people get for years. If you've been in this for a long time, you don't get hyped up, excited anymore, because there's somebody out there. If you do believe in this, do believe that it's real, that someone or some group has been delaying this or holding this up. By the way, and I can get to that later, in my opinion. And I'm going to get to the evidence in a bit, but I'm just telling this story to let you guys know I'm just like you all out there. I do research. When I used to attend these private classes years ago, they actually gave me a nickname. They used to call me Research John. By the way, that was my nickname. They gave a few other people a nickname, some nicknames at some of these meetings I used to attend. And but this other gentleman, he was kind of associated with this group. He came for a while and then he stopped coming because there was different groups out there that would talk about stuff related to the redemption education through word of mouth. But he knew about the dinar as well. So when I found out, when he told me towards the end of 2010, I went and made a purchase in the early part of 2011. My first purchase was actually from an online dealer that is no longer around, because unfortunately, I heard some years later they had got raided by the FBI. Now I know some of you guys are thinking, see, that's proof that there was a scam. But I found out the specific reason, allegedly, why they were raided. When I looked into it at the time, by the way, is because they were doing layaways, and I remember different sites out there were always doing layaways, and I was never a big fan of layaways. I get the concept, like for foreign currency, like if you wanted to purchase foreign currency, by the way, at the time, which the Iraqi dinar wasn't the only currency that they sold. By the way, there's many other currencies out there that were being sold by this group, and their name went, I think they changed to Sterling Currency Group. They used to be called Dinar Banker. And what happened is I heard that upon doing the layaways, that they were supposed to give people back the amount that they had put in, even if they didn't meet the 30-day deadline for the complete purchase. So somebody had looked up a securities law and found out they violated some type of securities law, that Dinar Banker Sterling Currency, when, let's say, if you had a certain time period that you had to make the full payment to get the A lot of times it would say if you were going to purchase $1 million worth of dinar, it was $1,000. Say you pay the taxes, whatever it was, on top of that, and if you didn't make the other payment by a certain date, then they would take the rest of your amount. And I heard from reading the case and everything, because the case, I don't know if it's still online, but it used to be online years ago. You know how people look up court cases. I'm not, this is not one of my expertises, but it's something I know about where that people do, even how people find out when people have gone to prison, somehow they're able to look up their information. So this used to be online. I can't say if it still is. This was actual public information. I did research it at the time. I actually might have the cases somewhere on my computer still. I've gathered so much information throughout the years. Over, I had told a friend, we compiled, I've just estimated maybe over 4,000, 5,000 documents, between documents and videos or information, because nowadays we're being bombarded by tons of information out there. But that's neither here nor there. So I was reading the case, and I heard from a few other content creators, because I didn't catch some of the breakdowns on some of the calls that explained what had actually happened. And that was what I heard, that when people made a purchase and said they didn't complete the rest of the amount of the layaway, let's say, for example, just using this as an example, if you wanted to purchase 1 million dinars and it would be 1,000, and say you put 500 down and you didn't make the payment, let's say by the 10th of February, then they would keep the rest of the amount. And somebody, I guess, got upset, and this happened to so many people that somebody had actually known a law that there was a securities violation. By the way, now they were allegedly licensed. They had to go through the Treasury, but the flaw was that, according to some type of securities law through the Securities Exchange Commission or the SEC, they were supposed to send the other amount. That, say, if somebody had put 500, they were supposed to send whatever the exchange rate was. There's still an exchange rate at the time, similar to cryptocurrencies. Like, there's it has some similarities in the way. There's actually like ongoing exchange rate. By the way, if you go to Safe Dinar to prove this, there's a website, and this is not any promotion. I don't work for them, but just doing research. There's other dealers out there, but safedinar.com is still around, and they have actually list, I believe, the exchange rate. There's some other sites that sell it. They will list what the actual current, there's an exchange rate. It's like, let's say it's in the pennies or less than a penny, whatever it is. They were supposed to send the equivalent, because sterling, they didn't do that or whatever, and this person sued or somehow. Then they got raided, and that's what happened. But that was based upon, they may not have been aware themselves that they broke an actual law that they may not have been aware of, because that's why you have to do a lot of research when you go into certain types of fields or things to make sure all your tracks are covered, all your I's are dotted, all your T's are crossed, by the way. So to get into what happened some years ago, back around, you could say 2011, maybe 2012, I went to Chase Bank, and I actually inquired about the Iraqi dinar specifically. And there was a teller at the time. She was trying to help me, a nice young lady, African-American woman at the time. And I no longer bank with them, by the way, but I used to for a number of years. I was with them. And she was trying to assist me, and I noticed through the teller windows, many of the banks have bulletproof glass, but through the window, just as I was waiting, she had a currency book. Now, here's the evidence, actual evidence I've forgotten about sometimes to mention. This shows proof. There's an actual paperback book that they have, and some versions may be a hardback book. And if you are a good researcher, I'm kind of giving you a hint, because nowadays a lot of things are online, so there may be another version of a book. When you have a hardback book, you also have what else? See, I'm playing with you guys. You guys can read between the lines. I'm showing you how smart I am. You also have what's called paperback books or ebooks, which are in what? PDF files or ebooks, you see? So she was actually flipping. This is what I actually physically saw. I can't tell you this specific year, but it was around that time period after I inquired, by the way. And she was actually flipping, and I actually saw she was turning the pages through there, because I think she was not aware herself from her body language at the time. And I saw the Iraqi dinar, and I saw the Vietnamese dong. what it looked like, the version that I had purchased, not the older currency that has Saddam Hussein's face on it, but the newer, the other version at the time, because I heard that could have constituted a scam if you allegedly didn't buy the right type of currency, because they those notes were not were not in circulation anymore, may have got actually weren't going to be part of the exchange, but there's certain notes, and there's an actual book that's rated. I don't know what regulatory body governs these books, so that's something you have to do your research into. That's why I do give a disclaimer there, whatever the governing body. But what I'm telling you is what I saw out of my own eyes. Now, I can't make people believe me, but I can just tell you my story from my experience, and I'm addressing this topic that I've gotten trolls that have come to previous videos, and I'm addressing all the trolls out there. And I know about this Dave Pacman's channel, this liberal white guy or whatever that's tried to accuse or say a lot of Trump supporters or people were involved in this Iraqi dinar scam. I'm gonna address that. I'm personally not a registered voter, by the way. I have not been a registered voter since 2004. So let me be clear on that. There's people that try to stereotype other people and lump them in categories, and people don't even, effing know you and try to put you in a box. But I'm a realist at the end of the day, and I'm a researcher, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to share credible information, facts. That's factual. So this is not something that what I'm sharing right now that you can take it as my opinion, but not even fact check can refute. I saw this with my own eyes in person. She was flipping through a foreign currency booklet at the bank when I was inquiring about the dinars, and I'm still not finished with the story yet. Her supervisors came over at the time afterwards. I saw someone behind her. I can tell they had a higher rank because they forced her. They swooped in and pushed the book away, had her close it. But in the meantime, before they had come over, I saw her go through the book, flip through the pages, and I saw images of the dinar and the dong in there, and that told me at the time, this is real. This is a major bank. This is someone I'm seeing actually in person with my eyes. Because nowadays with this cancel culture and this woke craziness and this foolishness and goofiness, there's a lot of gaslighting going on, and there's people, entities out here that, because they're pushing, for the New World Order, by the way, the evil people. So they're trying to basically make was things that are real, not real, and things that are actually fake, real, try to convince people of lies and stuff like that. And, they've doubled down hard on, but I'm telling you, this is actual experience. I swear on both my grandmother's graves. I wouldn't make nothing up. I don't have a reason to make nothing up like this, but I'm just sharing this with you guys. This is an actual experience I had. So after that, her supervisors came over at the time and said, one of them said, we don't deal with the Iraqi dinar, and said it was a scam. And then the other teller said, well, it's a terrorist currency at the time. Now, it's interesting, somewhere around 5 to 6 years after that, this time period, there was a particular conference call I listened to at the time, and I was informed they were told to stop doing that. So I did notice things kind of changed some years ago, because some years back, I had purchased a foreign currency. I won't say which one from that particular institution, when I found out from listening to this conference call that some people don't like, some people discredit. I won't say his name, but I appreciate his intel that he's given throughout the years. I never met him before, but I also found out from him to corroborate my story that I'm sharing with you all. And many times I've only shared this story a handful of times in certain videos to show validity or proof. Like I said, I can't make people believe me, but I can just share my experience, what I've actually saw. And I'm going to go over some other stories of actual people that I know. And I won't say name. I don't say names sometimes to protect people's identity. I don't want people finding out who these people are, blowing their phone up. Now, some people that know me know that I do YouTube videos or know me personally, so they have inclinations of who some of my sources may be. And that's fine. That is for what it is. But they're not, any type of threat to my private sources that I have that are credible. By the way, I do have credible sources too at a certain level, I would say. So this particular conference call confirmed this individual many years ago that there was a booklet he would visit when he would go to different banks, I guess like Chase or Wells Fargo. I found out from him I pieced it together. I didn't realize it at first. And he said he would ask the bank or the teller or branch manager, could he look at the currency booklet? And I said, wow, currency booklet. I said, you know what? That is the actual booklet that I saw the teller flip through at the time when her supervisors had rushed over and told me shortly after that they claimed that the dinar was a scam at the time. They said it. But what's ironic is that this individual, these private classes that I attended, that's the first part of the story when I just started the video, the gentleman that I trust, he's an elder. He had no reason to lie. And there were other people that I knew that attended these meetings and told me personally, privately, they had purchased dinar from not just Chase Bank, which had stopped selling it at one time, but they purchased it from Fifth Third Bank, which is the other story, part of the other story I'm going to get into. By the way, I'm going to jump in the chat section in a little bit just to give you guys a heads up to acknowledge who's in here. Obviously, right now, you guys know where pretty much where I'm at. So just bear with me, but I'm going to plan on getting into the other story about the banker that I met in Ohio. If her number hasn't changed, I still had her number. She was married at the time. It was a couple, maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly. It's going on a while now. We had a conversation in the summertime. And how I discovered or we were able to connect when that TDA movement had broken out. And I'm not talking about the other banker that I know, someone that kind of works in that field out of New York. This is a different banker, by the way. And this banker that I spoke with, she had a securities license as well, and she's in a neighboring state. I'm gonna try not to say, but I'll just say a neighboring state, by the way, where the other banker I spoke to, so you guys don't get confused, because you guys know I told a story of another banker that's a different banker that is, I'll say, somewhere on the East Coast, by the way. But this particular banker who did have a securities license told me she used to, I don't know, I can't say for sure, I haven't been in touch with her in several years, but from just relaying what she shared with me privately, she worked for Fifth Third Bank at one time, and she also had confirmed she had purchased dinar. And I was going to tell the story before I kind of got sidetracked. We met after that TDA movement had broke out in 2017 that went really viral, where people were using the so-called secret account thing, if you guys remember that. And then there was a conference call she was on with a sister down in Houston I discovered named Portia, and there was some other sisters, and this banker that I spoke with, she was on this particular conference call. I discovered from doing a lot of research back then, different channels, and I was able to connect with somehow. She reached out to me, by the way, and we did speak or whatever. So, that's another person. And there's a gentleman that I know I've been in touch with for a number of years at different times. He's married, still around, and he confirmed to me privately he had purchased dinar from Fifth Third Bank at one time. Now, I can't say if they still sell it. If that's the case, I don't know. It's different places. I don't, necessarily just stay throughout the years. I got with pretty much what I was comfortable with, and just was satisfied, because that isn't, the only foreign currency that obviously I was invested in or had looked at. And the reason there was a lot of emphasis placed upon the dinar, in case some of you all were wondering, is because there was a deal made years ago. I don't know all the details about or remember, where because of Iraq, their oil, it was going to be, it was estimated that once this worldwide revaluation, whatever, took place, that it was going to be the main currency. But they were contemplating between the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and or some other groups, who was going to be the lead country by the way. And I think I just heard recently that Saudi Arabia joined the BRICS country because there was a deal allegedly made where the United States years ago was supposed to make some type of deal where if they accepted the U.S. dollar, then this may have been part of the Bretton Woods agreement. Then in return, United States would receive oil. But the deal was they had offered Saudi Arabia protection that if they agreed to purchase or to sell their oil to exchange it in U.S. dollars or something like that, petrol, that may be what the petrodollar was, then they will receive protection. But I heard recently, because since Kabul country was abandoned by the Biden administration, whatever, because there's a lot of stuff going on with this war. This stuff ties in with this stuff too, and the cabal stuff like that. But I'm not going to try not to get all into that, but just keep it basic. I heard that's the reason where they noticed over there that the U.S. abandoned them, and the Saudis decided, or Saudi Arabia decided to join the BRICS. That's BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That has a part of a separate banking system, by the way, that is a threat to the Federal Reserve banking institution. And from what I was informed, allegedly, they're bringing in a new system altogether. They actually already have it. It's just certain banks are not ready. I was told from one of my private sources that the smaller banks are not prepared, but the bigger banks, I guess, I can't say specifically, allegedly, they stated that they were ready to go. But it's just the smaller banks are not prepared, and allegedly they're switching over to blockchain. And I have some separate notes, by the way, I don't have with me at the time, but I actually looked at, and I can do a video on that. But to address this specific topic, I wanted to address, because I had a troll. One of my recent videos came in the comment section and stated that the Dinar was a scam. And this is my last time addressing this issue. Why it's not? I think I presented enough information already. I've got some more stories for you guys before I shut down the video. But that's why I did say I was going to go to the comment section. So I'm going to acknowledge you guys in the comment section, and I'm going to jump back to my notes. Let's see who's in. Gerald Joke says, let's go. What's your opinion? Secret Balance says, case text says, Secret Balance Thoughts Burn says, what about the 3 trusts? Okay, I'm not sure which trust you're referring to. Bianca Lagarde says, hey, hi, Dorsey. Appreciate you. Blanca, thank you for joining. Secret Balance, if you're still watching, let me know. I'm not sure what 3 trusts. You comment again what 3 trusts you're referring to. I may be able to address that. But the topic of this particular video, specifically, I wanted to address is I had a troll, and I've had this in the past. People come and say, Dorsey, that's a scam, or this never going to happen, this, that, and other. Everybody's welcome to their own opinion. You know what I'm saying? I understand. I can't force or make anyone believe what I believe, but I can at least share these stories that, people out there that do know me to be a credible person, a credible individual that just doesn't just make up stuff. And I say, if I do make mistakes, I try to come before you guys. I update you all, and I have in the past if I've been wrong about something. I'm constantly evaluating, and I encourage everyone to make their own assessment and evaluate the information. But nowadays, there is a lot of disinfo out there, and I'm telling this story to help shed some light, these different stories on why I don't think, in my opinion, the Dinar is a scam. Even though we've been waiting a long time, and you guys know I've done videos, I would have liked to know, because there's people that obviously have sources much higher. There's people on the inside. I used to hear this one talk show host say years ago, him and I think one other person said they knew the people who were holding this up. And I said, I wish so bad they could release the names. These has got to be some evil people that's been, holding this up. Because I heard years ago the reset wasn't getting funded, wasn't based upon this whole reset occurring. Because even when I was part of a so-called private clandestine operation, a private humanitarian program, where you guys remember the Pastor Tony King seminars that rebranded under the name Kingship Manna Coalition, that there was people that got access to their funding that were part of earlier groups, from what I understand, from what appeared to be, to me, from what I was able to piece together, because we were told at the time when I attended some of the earlier meetings, some of them were supposed to come back and help, and I did see one of the individuals come back to a follow-up event some years ago when I had to go. I hated it at the time. I was part of the northern region. We had to go to Canada, so we were connected to the Canadian group, and that's when I had to meet the qualifications to receive that black card at the time, by the way. But I wanted to know, there was a lot of unanswered questions and speculation out there, and it's hard to just stay patient or just believe when somebody or one person's telling you just believe us, and they're telling you to be patient. You're not seeing anything manifest, and you feel like you've done all that you could. You were very loyal. You followed all the rules, but you were always told there was other people that messed up, and you felt it wasn't fair that when somebody broke the rules, that means everybody in the family got punished. That isn't fair. It wasn't fair at the time. That was my opinion, and I plan on addressing that down the road, what actually happened. Despite, no matter what, that's going to be something I'm never going to forget. That's going to leave a negative stain, because I've got a friend, people out there that's trying to feel like they're trying to win me to the other side, or like they're trying to take up for Pastor Tony King, and no, I'm not letting that slide. Whoever his minions or these people, these gatekeepers behind the curtain, whoever the hell they are, that's not going to easily just ride off in the sunset. I just, let that go. No, that's not good enough. The way that was ran, my package still being out there. Someone I talked to said that's a form of identity theft. By the way, that's still in their possession, and I'm was told allegedly that this person had it in their possession. Somebody should have reached out to me, and then we were told when he allegedly resurfaced in November of 2018, I was able to trace back, because I did a Facebook video on one of my personal Facebook pages, which is attached to my Dorsey's resource page, and that was still up there. I didn't delete those videos where I was ranting, discussing my discontent, by the way, went down, and that's what actually happened. And I did originally sign a non-disclosure agreement, because some people ask me, and I feel like I didn't break the non-disclosure agreement. Here's the reason why I didn't break the non-disclosure agreement, because they were the ones that breached the contract. And if you want to know why, they were the ones that breached the contract, because he gave an ironclad guarantee that we were going to get funded. And there was even one guy who was part of the group that even told me, he specifically promised me, and I wasn't trying to hold his feet to the fire at the time or whatever, but there was another witness who was on one of the private calls and said, John, he specifically promised you was going to get you the black card. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to put this person's name out there, but they told me they heard him say this. And I appreciate the woman at the time from Atlanta, Georgia, from the Georgia area. I don't know who she was. There was a call that I was on some years ago. Don't remember the year, but I know it was like damn near a decade ago. It's a long time ago. And she said at the time she took up for me. And I never got a chance to thank her, because I had to get ready for work. I had to rush off there because there was a guy, a brother. Now, who I'll mention, this name I'll mention the show. This is an actual credible story. At the time, I'm no longer in touch with his brother. I don't know what happened. I think one of them got married at the time some years ago, the last I was in touch with them. But they were very frustrated. It was Corey and Rob Norwood out of Chicago, Illinois area, who I knew at the time. They attended these events. And that's the story behind how we met. We ended up, when we connected in person, because there was a lot of people that attended this private seminar. And when I was on a phone call with Rob, I think it was Rob at the time. He was the younger brother. I think Corey was his older brother, because there was some things revealed to me at the time. And Rob told me at the time we were going to ask Pastor Tony King, we were trying to come with a sincere question to try to get to the bottom of this, because we were always being promised that we were going to get funded. or, you know, whether it was from our DTC, which was a separate transaction, or the black card. And it just keeps stringing people along like this after people pay hundreds of dollars at seminars. It's very, very cruel, very evil, in my opinion, very wicked, very, very, and it's not Christian like. They were also coming off as a Christian organization, Christian, which is a goddamn lie. And it's wonder why you know, people may not even want to go to church anymore, deal with churches when they've been burned by different preachers of people out there that profess to be Christians or be pastors. You know, it's really not a good look. So, make a long story short, he told me when I got off the call, by the way, I know I kind of got sidetracked. I'm going to get back on the subject, that some sister came up there and said, hey, Pastor Tony, he shouldn't be afraid to ask you, because I guess she could hear how in my voice I was nervous, you know, going before these calls. But, you know, I wanted to get this question out the way because Rob said at the time, at the last minute, we were on three-way right before we were on basically the conference call. We were going to decide. He was like, well, you go ask him the question. So I ended up asking whatever it was, and I expressed in a compassionate way. But I guess the sister on the call, she could sense at the time I was nervous, which I'm not afraid to admit. You know, this guy, you know, we were going by under his tutelage at the seminars under the name that he utilized. And she said, Pastor Tony, he should not be afraid. And I heard that she went off on him or whatever and said he shouldn't be afraid to ask these questions. So whoever that sister was out there, I want to thank you personally. I don't know your name. You know, reach out to me. Much, much love to you. By the way, we need two warriors. There's not a lot of queens out there like that nowadays. It's very rare to find Harriet Tubman types out there, archetype personalities. Very, very rare. And I do give shout outs to the sisters, but that was a you know, amazing effort. And I just want to personally thank that sister. I always will forget when I would talk about that and address that topic, because there was pressure being put on me behind the scenes where they were mad. That's why I took down some of the YouTube videos at the time. But I wanted to talk about the topic again because I never got funded. He promised multiple occasions, even when he resurfaced, that we were still supposed to get something. And I just feel it's not right, personally, in my opinion. He knows he's already on the other side. He's already an elite. They have an advantage. It's easy for them to access their wealth. When I feel there's other ways he could have reached out, especially I'm thinking he's a black man that's supposed to be a man of melanated descent, supposed to at least look out for your other brothers, even though there was a mixture of people that attended these events. And just to be feel like we're thrown to the wolves and just forgotten about reminds me of a movie I saw years ago called Children in the Attic that my aunt showed, my aunt from Cleveland, Ohio, that we were just basically left abandoned, and they've just acted like, you know, like we don't matter anymore. Like I've heard there's an excuse because I did the YouTube videos. He tried to say from my sources I have out there that if you did YouTube videos, you're kicked out. Well, that's fine. Then give me my goddamn package back. Then, or else I'm definitely going to contact the authorities, high up, all agencies from the U.S. Marshals to the FBI, even private investigators, if I don't receive my package back, because that's a form of identity theft. They're still holding my DTC eligibility questionnaire form, my payment wizard payment forms, my what do you call it? My birth certificate, my social security card, which, you know, those are documents, but we were told and promised, given an ironclad guarantee. And you guys know what an ironclad guarantee is like. You know, you've seen those commercials. If you're not satisfied within 30 days, 90 days or whatever, we promise you'll get your money back. That's the level of numerous times he gave us solidified beyond the ironclad guarantee. So we're all the way in 2023 now. And you guys are wondering, that's where I've struggled with throughout the years. I've been on this punk ass 9-to-5 job. I'm not funded. There's people that out there that have tried to help me in some regards, but it has not been because this type of schedule that I have. And if I would have known certain things, I could have done things in a different way. And there's some other things I can go into because I know this may seem like I'm ranting, by the way, that Pastor Tony King could have at least given us a heads up to put not just myself, but others in a better predicament where we wouldn't have had to kind of go through what we're going through, and we would be in a better position to actually help people because we were told that was supposed to be a humanitarian program to help people, that which I ended up learning a lot of these elites out here, they use their foundations, their trust, their organizations for corrupt purposes, or they'll pose as philanthropists, that they're helping humanity. But I believe in my humble opinion, if they're not really helping people, what's the purpose of having all of those billions of dollars in wealth, or millions, and then you didn't even turn around and help the people that you claim to recruit at your seminars, that you called to be family members, that you said we're all supposed to be family, we're supposed to move as a family. And I was told there was people that were supposed to reach back that never did, that there's people that already got their funding, which I can prove. I met a guy in Canada named Jamie Steves, allegedly. I reached out to him, he never reached back. By the way, there's others, Steve Thomas, who I was able to identify from, I figured out on my own, actually, from no one, just doing some research. By the way, some of these people were claiming to be Christian. This is not Christian-like at all. By the way, and then some other person tried to say, "Oh, well, get over it," or they'll say, "Oh, Dorsey, just admit you got scammed." I tell people, because there was people who came in the second wave, that it wasn't a scam, but these people, when they're at this level, they were playing favoritism with certain people for what it appears to be, and evidence that I have. But like I said, because this is not something that I can necessarily, because some people, they won't be able to relate to, but these are actual events that I attended privately, and I wouldn't have never attended years ago if my older cousin had not told me. He had to kind of encourage me to go, and the only reason he convinced me at the time, he said, because you'll meet other like-minded people there. That's the only reason. Because other than that, I really didn't. My chances of attending were very, very slim. But it's only upon that reason at that time, and that was back in 2009, the early part of 2009. By the way, and I didn't attend my first seminar that year until I think August of that year. And that's also the same year, or around the same timeline. There's a call that's still on YouTube. If you type in the YouTube search engine about the black card, if you're curious, there was people who went over that. If you type in the Elton black card video, that video I noticed was still up, even though YouTube got removed a lot of stuff about the banking systems. They're trying to cover stuff up. The documentaries and stuff like that I've gone over, really cruel, shows you how evil, how wicked these people are. And I didn't know which side, that they were really on, or who to believe, especially someone's professing to be Christian, but they never come through on their promises. It's just lies. And then people are constantly coming out of money. Then there was reports I received. There was a couple out of Ohio. I got an anonymous email from someone that said they lost their marriage over it. They were going to contact the Ohio Attorney General. I found out from a private friend that even helped investigate this on my behalf years ago. He used to work for the Department of Interior in Washington, D.C., and even stated to me that I found out, and I didn't even know this, that some people in Tampa, Florida had filed a complaint with the FBI and some people in Orlando regarding this same seminar that I'm going over, by the way. And that was years ago. And I never officially went to these entities yet. I just asked, if you're not going to get me funded, the least you can do is return my documents, my information, because that is a form of identity theft, and that should be warrant enough to conduct for an investigation to be conducted, or for some type of penalty where I should be receive some form of restitution for going through that type of stress all these years, by the way. And I think I've just laid out a case as genuine issue as to material fact. I've solidified, but unfortunately, these people are at a high level when you're talking about dealing with the ruling class elite. But there may be certain agencies, I think I've heard allegedly the U.S. Marshals may be qualified at their credential level to go after some of these types of people, by the way, under certain circumstances. By the way, they may have the appropriate jurisdiction, by the way. But I didn't mean to go that deep, but that's going to be something that's going to be a negative stain. It's something I'm never going to forget. And there's no way that can ever be pacified uh, until, because they're still holding my documents. And I just say to anybody who thinks otherwise, that's stated to me to get over it and this type of other stuff to rebuttal that, then you need to wear the shoes that I'm in, and I need to put you back in time. If you wear the same shoes that I were in, you would feel the same way or no different or a lot worse. You would feel a lot, you would be upset. You would be angry as well. There's people that always try to say, and they would play favoritism after all the things our people have been through, especially. And this is Black History Month too. And I'm not one of those people that's entitled or whatever, but there was a lot of things. And this guy that was supposed to be the head administrator that goes by the name Pastor Tony King, aka Anthony Fisher, he's supposed to be a black melanated man. And, there's lots of people that trusted you. You let a lot of people down. That's why I hear allegedly a lot of people who are still around that dropped out don't even trust this guy no more, or even want to go to any more of these events, because he's always asking for money, from what I'm hearing from my private sources out there, that people don't have. And if you got people funded in the first place, like your early groups that got funded, received funding, that was supposed to reach back and help, by the way, then it would be a lot different, probably a different scenario. You wouldn't have so many people upset at you, not just myself, but speaking on behalf of other people, because this is not about me, you see. So to get back on the topic of this video I was covering is the Iraqi dinar global reset a scam. My last time addressing this issue, in my opinion, no, I don't think it's a scam. And I went over some of the stories, like the teller at the bank I saw flipping through the currency book pages at Chase Bank till her branch manager or her supervisors came over and ushered it away. And I could tell at the time they were told this is like a organized cover up. But I was told about 5 to 6 years after that, from listening to a conference call, they were told to stop doing that. They were told basically to stop telling people it's a scam. And I was informed that the Vietnamese dong was a sister currency. They were joined like at the hip. And I spoke to a banker in Ohio where she also, and she told me she was going for a Series 7 license. I think she already had a form of a securities license, because there's different levels. And she told me privately she owned Dinar as well, and also confirmed that Fifth Third Bank used to sell it at the time. I also have a private source who has a friend who is a notary that I've actually met before. And I won't say her name to protect her identity. I do remember her name and know who she is, and she would know who I am. It's been a while since I've seen her or retained her services. But allegedly, from my source, told me she has a relative who's a banker who works in either New York or New Jersey. I think it's New York, but don't quote me exactly. But this is a true story. My source referred to me or told me about that she actually asked one of her supervisors at the bank that had higher credentials than she had, that was able to access the back screens, by the way, which many of you all have heard about. I've heard from the private conference calls. I didn't know too much about them. So she had one of her supervisors, allegedly, she was the cousin of the notary, of a friend of mine that told me, and I've not met the notary before. She's actually notarized documents that I've had. By the way, I'll just leave it at that. I won't say her name, but she has a relative who, this was maybe some years ago, I don't know the exact year, actually had asked a supervisor, because they wanted to know if this was legit as well, because they were hearing this, with YouTube years ago. They were people trying to find out themselves whether this was legitimate or not. And she had a supervisor at the time. He told me, look into this. And the supervisor told her, he said, hey, I would not get rid of those dinars. When this happens, this is going to be high. So it appears as though, from what my source relayed to me, there's another rate that the back screens actually show what the exchange rate is supposed to be once it actually goes live. Now that rate still fluctuates, even though he was actually able to access. This is a more private side of the banks, which you have to allegedly have You have to have higher credentials. I've even talked to a branch manager at a different bank that told me that he at the time he couldn't access the back screens. I was trying to do something else, referring to another thing that I had asked about, and I talked about in a different video. I won't go into what that was. So this banker allegedly at the time, he was able to see, based on his credentials, the higher rate, and he advised her, came back and said, hey, if you're holding this currency, he said, I would not get rid of this. And that was some of the information I received maybe a year or two ago. By the way, that was the last information that I received as far as powerful information, as far as a year or two ago. And there was also a story many years ago. I mentioned in a previous video, I mentioned this several times in the past. There was from the same friend, there's another person we know who was a pastor of a church. And I actually met before. I don't remember his name, but I remember seeing him at a coin show some years ago. And he went over, he told my friend, he actually saw it show up one night many years ago on Forex, or saw the actual rate show up temporarily. And what's ironic is this conference call, whose the name I won't say of this particular gentleman because he stirs up controversy, so I won't say the name because some people don't like him. But me personally, I appreciate his information throughout the years, by the way. I've never got a chance to meet him before. Would love to meet him, but I appreciate the information he's put out. I think I've been able to interpret some of the things he's saying separately from there's others out there. Another conference call that I trust that thinks has credible information, and they've kind of bumped heads at times, like, whatever, but that's neither here nor there. But this particular conference call, he stated that there was someone, VIP, a very important person, did an exchange one night where they opened it up temporarily at a higher rate. That's like kind of like how they're able to do these flash crashes, if you know about cryptocurrency, where all of a sudden the powers that be that control the rates and stuff on the screens were able to temporarily do a crash, so their big wigs could go in. But this time, the opposite was done, where when this person went in, whoever this VIP person was, went into exchange, they raised the rate up temporarily in the middle of the night. They went and exchanged at a certain time, or in the wee hours, or you could say the early morning, because we sometimes refer to the morning because the nighttime, once you get after midnight, it's actually technically you're into the next day, the early morning. Well, sometime in the night, I don't know what time specifically, but to corroborate this story, my source told me this pastor that I know shared this story with him. He saw the actual rate show up one night. And I said, ironically, there was a conference call that I listened to where this particular guru went over that some very VIP person out there had exchanged in the middle of the day, raised the rate up to a large amount. Because keep in mind, those of y'all who don't know, as I went over this earlier, the dinar has a fluctuating rate or a constant rate. I don't know how often they update it, just like if you check the rate of what the price of silver and gold is at. Like if you go to kitco.com, just type in Kitco silver, or you go to coinflation.com, or even certain sites that current coin dealers that sell precious metals have what the current rates are. That's, I believe, is set by the LBMA, the London bullion market, by the way. So, I can't make this stuff up, guys, but I'll let you all be the judge, let you all decide. But I said this is the last time I'm going to be addressing this issue from different trolls out there that have accused this of being a scam. But like I said, at the end of the day, I gave a disclaimer. Everyone has to make their own assessment, has to do their own homework and evaluation. But I'm just sharing these stories from my opinion. No, I don't think these are the reasons why. I think I've laid out multiple reasons. And there's other things I may have forgotten about or gone over. But if you compare it to watching my older videos, where I don't think this is a scam at all. Matter of fact, I have people that I know that these two banks that I mentioned between Fifth Third and Chase, there's people that have receipts and confirmed with me. People that I know that are married, credible people that I know. I actually could say by their name, which I won't say their names, by the way. So hopefully you guys can make it out to be, and I'll leave it at that. I'm going to go to the comment section and get ready to shut this video down, by the way. So let's see here. We got, I know earlier, okay, Secret Balance asked me about the trust. Okay, asked me the Express Trust and the two others. Okay. Very interesting. At this time, I don't have my notes with me, and I probably have to talk to one of my sources to get information on that. I want to actually ask them again about, because one of my sources has some information about these other trusts that you need down the road, by the way, once you have your Express Trust set up. By the way, also I wanted to thank, I didn't really get a chance. I was going to do a separate video about this, by the way, but I wanted to address this topic. I wanted to get this topic out the way because of obviously the trolls that were out there. But you did ask me a question about the trust, so I'll do my level best to answer it. The Express Trust is, I can say, is known as it's a form of a common law trust. And in the early 1900s, to go into the history, many of these major corporations, I was informed, started off as Express Trust. They formed today, when you study the law, how they captured the court system. The courts turned into statutory courts. You have to look up the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case in 1938. You know about how the court system changed. A lot of the courts went from common law. Common law was it's still around to a degree. It's under a different name, by the way, and that's what these particular types of trusts deal with. There's differences between statutory and non-statutory trust, but it's important to understand the trust class can be very extensive, by the way, and how you structure yourself and how you operate. It's very complex. That's why I refer, if I don't know the specific answers to what someone may be trying to do with the trust. Trust can hold entities. They're used for different purposes to shelter assets, shelter property. Trust can be used to pass down property to the next generation, to your children. But it's also, you have to understand which positions you hold by the trust, because you don't want a sham trust either. You want a trust that are legitimate, and you want to know the difference between a public side trust. Sometimes it can be beneficial to have a public side trust, but it's based upon how you're structured. You have to know how you're structured and how the entities would relate to one another, so that you will still be protected at the same time, that you won't be commingling your strawman name or your N lingus with what the types of things that entity is doing, by the way. So he says, are there specific steps to take to avoid going to jail? Absolutely. Some of these questions are more so built for a private consultation, because some of these things I can go more in depth, but I think it's too public. I think some people out there put too much information out there, by the way, which I have been accused of in the past. And there's some new information I actually came across that I found out about that will help one stay more private. But I don't go into these things yet, because there's still a certain level that I'm trying to get to. And I kind of got sidetracked a little bit. I was going to thank, there was this group out there. A friend of mine contacted me a couple weeks ago or whatever, and stated, and I won't say who he is, but I do want to acknowledge, in case they're listening, because he told me one of the members follows my channel. I didn't know who she was, but I knew who the other person was. I came across some new information I'm not at liberty to go into detail about. Uh, it's kind of like I have to literally go back to school again. And this was mentioned when I used to attend these private classes years ago. They said it's damn near like we have to become lawyers independently, study for the bar association, but the information we're learning is more powerful because they only learn certain types of information unless they go to certain types of schooling. There's certain types of schooling that only certain types of lawyers and judges may learn or know about this information, by the way, because they're trained to be brainwashed on the statutory side, by the way. Or there's a specific method. They're not necessarily trained, but there are those out there who are becoming smarter, that are becoming allies that can interface with the private sector and understand what's going on. But sometimes that's why when you present this information to people on the public side, they're not going to know what you're talking about, by the way. And I think some of that information, I think I've gone over because there's people that I know do listen to me, do trust. I'm trying to think of the right words. What I say, and I call that my intellectual property. Like there's channels that I've shouted out, for example, in the past. And even though there's people that don't donate to the channel, they don't, I've asked, I said, if you guys want to see me put out powerful information, I need to see the cash apps. And I'm not begging or nothing because my channel's been seriously demonetized over here on YouTube. And it's not right. At times I've complained about it throughout the years. They've allowed newbies come here, and they've allowed the algorithms to push their views in the main feed. I forget what it's called, because a friend of mine told me he used to see my channel show up all the time in the YouTube referral section. I forget what they call it. And when they started shadow banning me and my content, that's why you guys may not get the notifications sometimes or don't see me. So that's why I encourage you, share the content. And if you share the channel, I have to see a collective effort. Then I will start putting out more powerful information. So, because keep in mind that the more people that donate, show love, because there's people that, for example, there was a lady that tried to hate. I was on one of my social media accounts, and she was trying to hate on people getting donations. But nowadays, people that put out, other content about dating, relationship stuff that I think is not even important, if it's not relevant to your life at the time, they're getting shown love. Their channels are blowing up. And I feel people don't have, especially in the Black community, they don't have their priorities straight. I've been on this journey for quite a while. My freedom is important, and I'm not going to give up. But I'm going to say this too, and that's why I encourage you guys to get on other web hosting platforms, which reminds me, I'm on Rumble. I just uploaded recently a video that YouTube had removed. They were trying to shut this channel down last year because of what I talked about, dealing with, what happened. If you guys remember what happened in 2020, I won't say, but that particular topic, because you guys know I went over certain topics I can't even talk about anymore because we got trolls and haters out there. And I went off credible information. But if you go to my Rumble account, which is at Dorsey's Resource, I just uploaded a video over there. And I have another one that was removed. They were like a month apart. Because if you get, a lot of people don't know, I had to tell a friend of mine, he didn't even know this. If you get three community guideline strikes, they can shut your channel down. And at the time I had 2. I stayed quiet about it because I didn't want, because obviously it appears as though there was a troll or someone out there that didn't like the information I was putting out. And they specifically, a lot of times they were liberal, which I'm not a registered voter, by the way. I emphasize that, but I do give my opinion, my way in about politics. I still think it's very important. I have a right as an American to still be informed, involved. And I found out they even created this panel in Michigan where they had to have people on like this election board. And several of the people, one of them, they had to either be independents. They couldn't belong to each particular political party. Now they're supposed to do that to show fairness, but we know the powers that shouldn't be, the ruling class elite, have been using the liberal progressive Democratic Party to push their agenda, their New World Order agenda. But if these liberals don't wake up. These politicians don't understand what's going on. That their bosses, their masters are trying to set up a one world government and will are trying to bring in, make it where the UN, United Nations, will overrule the local state and local politics if they're not careful. So people better start paying attention to who, if you are involved in that process, because you're supposed to get a return on your investment too. By the way, if you do decide you do participate in that system, which now is proven that they decide as of lately, unless they get, I won't go into that situation straightened out with those machines. You won't have, in my opinion, fair elections. Even within the Democrats, I pointed out cheat even amongst their own. I say this not just on behalf of, because I'm not attached to no political party. I'm just giving my opinion, what I saw, and then there's trolls, people that work maybe for InfoGuard. That's a division. They have a spy network, citizen spy network with the FBI, just like Hitler had during his time period, for people to make stuff up and report people. This stuff does go on. I found out that InfoGuard had even been implemented when they were mad at Kanye for what he had said about, that one community. I won't go into, but you guys remember that. If you guys know, look up what InfoGuard is. So I'm aware of this type of stuff, and these agents out here, these operatives, these minions that we have are called these trolls. So they were trying to shut my channel down. So if you want me to talk about more powerful stuff, more in depth, just putting this out there. If you have the money, you got deep pockets, support the channel, hit the Cash App, set up a consultation. Because I've given you guys, even if I refer to you, my subscribers, to people more knowledgeable than myself, that's still knowledge that the person would not have known about. They wouldn't have known who that person was unless I referred people to that person. I'm just saying. And that's why I don't necessarily shout out any names anymore, because people trust what I say. They believe in my research enough, but they don't want to show support. So I say sometimes, why should I put, some of the people that I think are credible, that I would go to once I get my stuff together. I would trust these people myself to do my paperwork or do my documents. And it's people, when they hear me go over these names, they'll trust those people and go over there and show them love, but they, will disregard the information that I have, that I've shared throughout the years. And I want to thank that elite team out there that gave me that information not too long ago, and my mentor, because they didn't have to do that. He stated he got permission, by the way, and I won't say what that is because I'm not at liberty to say. It was very powerful, but that will take me time to research. I'm not as young as I used to be. I gotta try to follow back up with my mentor, because I had some questions in regards to that procedure, because he told me he wanted me to master that, and I mean that was a lot to drop on me, and I understand I gotta put my work in, but I do appreciate the group sharing that, and my mentor having success in that regard. By the way, that's absolutely phenomenal. But I think it will take me some time, because I won't go into the details about that. But if there's some templates out there, maybe some instructions down the road I can receive. And as far as I won't go into, because I don't want people to try to figure out what that is. I won't even hint to it. But to put it this way, they have a lot of proven success. I saw it. I got the evidence. They showed me, by the way, and that was enough for me. It was very inspirational, I'm gonna say, too, by the way. Very, very inspirational. And I just turned 44 years old recently, so of course that's why I said, once again, I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm 44 now, officially an OG, lived over 4 decades, so I'm just it's a lot of information to take in, but God willing, down the road, I will get through this. And once my promise was that if I had already gotten funded years ago, I would have never worried about some of this stuff. I should have been out of this 9-to-5 job a long time ago. So I know once I believe, well, I shouldn't say I believe, I know. Once I get funded down the road, I'm gonna only have a small circle of friends, of people that I know, that I associate with. I'm gonna really know who rocks with me. So I'm already making a list. I've already got someone in a VIP category. They're not going to even have to worry because they've shown me so much love. They didn't even have to do that. And I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. I really do. And only that person I can say for sure is in a totally different category. But I'm going to have a list out there. But those are the types of things, types of surprises that I have down the road for people that's shown me love tremendously. By the way, just putting it out there. So Secret Balance has a question that says, are sovereign wealth funds created the same way? Question mark. I am a researcher. I worked on my spiritual sovereignty first. Okay. I've heard of the wealth funds. I'm not familiar with that. Just like the bonds, that sounds like let me see. Are sovereign wealth funds created? That sounds like those are part of those prosperity programs. There was many different projects, and that's still up in the air. We won't know until allegedly that they're holding everything up, allegedly, until this reset thing goes down. But that wasn't contingent upon. We were supposed to be funded a long time ago, though. And I was informed the cabal is involved in this. They've been blackmailing people. They've been breaking a lot of laws, like for people dealing with that redemption information. They've been hiding stuff. That's why I did a video on my Rumble account a while ago that YouTube removed. But when I put a description in there, if you go to my Rumble account, and I may be doing an updated video to go over business and law, how they hid commerce from us, hid how to do commerce, how to do secure transactions with the county, because COVID thing was being used as an excuse, because that's part of like the social distancing thing, what they want to implement to kind of keep you from even going to brick and mortar buildings, filing paperwork in person anymore. I was doing some research on a county in my birth state, and it looks as though you can't even go file the paperwork in person anymore. You have to mail it, do it online, or whatever. From what I was reading, those are like the only couple options. I think it was some other type of option, but they don't even want you to even come to the location in person. And that's not how this stuff was supposed to be designed. When they captured or took people's estates illegally, criminally, and started making interest, because Pastor Lindsey Williams mentioned, he said there was a code of ethics some years ago that the elites understood, they knew they were supposed to follow. And if they violated or broke this code of ethics, that was spiritual laws broken, and there would be severe consequences behind that. There's supposed to be an understanding of that. So when they're doing these things, they're bringing some severe consequences their way. But just understand, there's a lot of laws and things that they're breaking. They're trying to actually make you think that's not the case. Like when you need to file paperwork for different types of procedures, these government officials, they're supposed to be assisting you. They're not supposed to be mean, acting bougie, arrogant. There's laws behind this where the county's supposed to file any type of paperwork you give them. They're supposed to assist you. It isn't just supposed to be because you need to hire a lawyer, even if you're a pro se litigant, or there's this one site in my birth county, said if you self-represented, that's what they call it. That's the proper legal term. I think would be pro se litigant, if you know how to file the paperwork. But they're supposed to be assisting you and not giving you a hard time, because they don't want you getting your freedom, because they're stealing, those funds. They're going through the CRIS accounts. That's the court registry investment system, and then the counties, the CAFR, the comprehensive annual financial reports. Ken Dost, if you look up his videos, you have to find him. Ken Dost, last name D-O-S-T. It's on YouTube. He exposed how a lot of these mortgage companies were filing fraudulent trademarks. They didn't have even legitimate trademarks with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. You guys have to look this stuff up. See, a lot of this stuff, when you get to the bottom of this, they're hiding how to do commerce. Like, you shouldn't just have to take business and law class in college just if you were a legal or law major or accounting major and finance or whatever, because certain chapters cross into these disciplines. Like secure transactions deals with UCC financing statements. There was a separate chapter on negotiable instruments. There was a chapter on intellectual property. See how they're hiding these things? We're supposed to have an understanding of this. They've dumbed us down. And they've done this on purpose to try to get us, many of us, to be enslaved, to work these slave jobs just over broke, to work these grunt jobs. You know, these deadbeat jobs. This is by design. Some of this is done on purpose. Now, you have some people out here that are not astute, brilliant enough. They just believe what, they believe when they went through the public food system, by the way. But those of us in the know that are researchers, aware, they broke a lot of spiritual laws too. And there's people that they don't take that into consideration. And they think that this is just ranting, or they say, oh, you're making excuses, but you have to look. I look at both sides of this. So we're definitely in a fight. And it says in the scripture, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and powers and darkness. Secret Balance says, I've been at this since 2012 and have developed a good level of spiritual discernment. Integrity is a key aspect for me because these people are used as flunkies for the higher ups. Yes, I agree with that. Ron T says, why don't you find another way to get funded? You got your money taken and there's nothing you can do. I won't say necessarily, Ron T. I have a private source out there that actually says there is a way. I've had multiple sources, by the way, that said that card that I have is still loaded. They just turned it off. And I actually did a test some years ago with it because I know about how the banks mandated those new debit cards that have the chips. But actually what's ironic is the company I work for, I have to use like a fuel card, and that doesn't have a chip in it. And it still works, functions at the machines that do read chips. So it's ironic, for people that still have personal accounts that have debit cards attached to them. They have those chips mandated, but I have a card that like the old school credit cards, still works at those same machines that read the chips. So you guys gotta research, you gotta think. And my experience is different from the next man. So just because of what I'm sharing, you might not know all the details either. And I do have sources on both sides. He says it doesn't make sense. Someone has all that money but needs your money. Them people that you think got funded was in on the scam. No, there's evidence that I have. I know it seems like that, Ryan, but there's for example, I was able to corroborate or figure out, like I actually mentioned the name of the one of the people earlier, and I was able to figure out how they were funded, and I was able to figure out how another head administrator was. But to them, you have to keep in mind, these people are also, some of them are very evil. I'm not accusing all of them, but to them, it's like a game to them. Like, that's why I went over in my previous video, watch the movie Hunger Games. You have people that are really like President Snow. They have this real narcissistic spirit, this hater spirit, where they want to try to put obstacles. They purposely play favoritism to divide people too. A friend of mine that also did research stated the reason they'll empower flunkies or people who do drugs, or empower people who seem like they're alcoholics, or put them on a pedestal. And he said they make it hard for people who are intelligent like myself. He says because they see people like myself as a threat. Because we would do the right things. We would be the opposite of the George Soroses of the world. I would pay people to wake up to the truth. Instead of using those billions to fund these alphabet groups or BLM, I would use it to empower people, to purchase farm, purchase land, to grow food, stuff like that. I wouldn't use it to hurt people or like many of these elites do, they pose as philanthropists and launder their money through their foundations or trusts. In many cases, or you see there's a difference, and you have to be able to distinguish this. So I hear what you're saying, Ron T, under that name, but that's from my experience, by the way, which I personally witnessed, and I have supporting documentation to back up. But there was people that were funding. There's ways you can tell, and there's others I can name, out there that, and they were told they were supposed to reach back. And I heard some of them allegedly got in trouble, but when they got access to their wealth, and that's one of the reasons why I heard the administrator at the time didn't want to go over the information about the black card, because a lot of people never came back as a result of it. Even though that was a separate transaction from the DTC, I was also informed that you could use that same card to access your DTC account. If you know, DTC stands for Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. And there was other things they did too, by the way, to make sure. That's why I already know what a qualified institutional buyer is, and to make sure you were cleared with the SEC. I won't go into the details about that, because I think that's a bit too powerful, too public for some people to understand. But I hear where you're coming from. I know it sounds like that to a lot of people, Ryan, and reading your comment. It sounds like that to a lot of people, but that's a little bit more. It's a little bit more intricate than that. So I'm meticulous about this stuff. Secret Balance says, "Have you seen Seven?" Says, "Have you seen Seven Bomar or Yusuf L or Eon? I have 1.1 million in tax credits. Are you aware of transferring tax credits to a business for a discounted price?" I've heard of it, but I don't know how it's understood or how to convert it into FRNs. I'm familiar with those people you mentioned. By the way, I've been familiar with Yusuf for quite a while. I was actually used to call in on his show on High Frequency Radio some years ago. Eon, I'm definitely familiar with when he was under the name Brett Jones. By the way, may still have an older channel. No, he has a newer channel too. So I'm familiar with him. And then who I've followed King Stevens channel talks about those those credits, how to do that. And he's using a unique process. The problem is there's different processes that work. And that's why, to let you guys know, I still study, I still watch other channels, other people out there. I'm still a student, even at the level that I'm at advanced level. But there's been a leapfrog of the technology and information in more recent times. And I was having a conversation with someone who followed my channel a while ago, and they were explaining to me at the time how the information was being, they believe somebody real high up was holding on to all the information. It was basically being spoon-fed to us, being trickled down high up. But that I told this story just recently about came across some really powerful stuff, because there's different ways to access the funding. It's just they make the paperwork complicated on purpose. They make it time consuming where you got to go through the IRS. And if you guys haven't I read documents years ago. One thing about my experience in this, I'm 44 years old now. I've been studying this information officially since 2004. And in the earlier years, it wasn't like nowadays where you got all these different people who are knowledgeable and stuff. This information was very hard to come by and was well hidden. And the technology of this information wasn't advanced as it is nowadays. It took a collective effort of researchers out the years, and of course, over time, from some of the people higher up in the elite category that spoon-fed the information down to us, and for some people to figure it out and develop different processes to get the information to work for them. or their respective groups. I can say I'm really close. However, I faced some challenges at the time. Number one, I mentioned I've gone over quite a bit. These 9 to 5s, by the way, the 9 to 5 job just over broke. You guys know I refer to as a slavery plantation. That's used. They also use debt as their weapon. It's one of their main weapons they use. This form of financial slavery. There's even people part of communist organizations I've discovered, or activist groups that have this ideology, and they've talked about this too. They call it fascism, and there's a understanding where they created, whether you call this capitalistic system or imperialistic, whatever system. There's a format to how they set this fraud up. They committed fraud, and that's why I kind of went over earlier how they're breaking a lot of laws, but they're intentionally hidden from us how to do commerce, and they're not supposed to be doing that. They're not even supposed to be telling people. Like one lady, one troll out there was trying to make it where she was contacting attorneys in different states, attorney generals, trying to make it where you had to go through a lawyer to get a UCC file. That's not, when that was created, for example, you were supposed to have that right, that if you knew about that document, to be able to file that at your county, to record property, to register property, to say you had a lien or you had a security interest in a particular property. There was classes to teach about this. You see, so you guys let me know if you understand what I'm saying. But that's, I mean, it's pretty common for me, but some people who are new to this type of information don't understand the massive level of fraud and some of the obstacles they're putting in the way. These are challenges that some of us are facing, and we do need help. Some of us that are at an advanced level from some of the people that are more advanced or higher up. But another problem is to get sometimes the better information for those of us that are already advanced is that some of the people that have it, they charge large sums of funding, large amounts to get access to that. And that's can be another challenge, because then you have to save up so much from your job. If you're still punching the clock, you have to try to put to the side, or you have to try to allocate, because they've created so much of a rat race to put obstacles and roadblocks to put you on a hamster wheel. It makes you difficult. And they actively, that's why one of the reasons they're raising rents across the country with these greedy landlords are coming up with excuses to raise the property values and stuff, to say it's because of the cost of living. But there was supposed to be laws and things in place to actually protect people from predatory lending and rent costs and stuff like that drastically increasing overnight. And you guys easily go on YouTube, see this is happening in major cities all over the country. Is that ethical? Is that moral? And then one guy, a friend of mine, was telling me he's studying these classes from Grant Cardone, and he even told me you don't want the rent to be too high, or else you won't have tenants won't be able to live there. And I can tell you, somewhere that I know of course, people are moving out left and right. I can see they have a lot less residents because they've raised the rent so drastically, people can't even afford it. It's gotten so bad that people, I guess, that get Section 8 or rental assistance, they can't even afford to live at these properties anymore, and they're already getting assistance. I haven't gotten none. I don't have access to none of that. So, and this is how they keep you from growing your wealth. And then the banks. Some people try to say, because I had the title of this video, by the way. Well, I think I answered that question already. Is the Iraqi Dinar global reset a scam? And I said this is my last time addressing this. But you guys have to ask the question, because a lot of times people say cryptocurrencies is a scam, and they haven't done their research, or they say, oh, that sovereign citizen stuff, those people are part of a cult. Well, that's a scam. Or people come up with these different stereotypes. And I told a friend of mine, this is a real conversation. I said, I don't know where these people get some of this spookism stuff from, but I had to explain at one time to my barber, when I used to go to a barber shop. I cut my own hair as of lately. And I was telling them some years ago, and they were saying, "Oh, you're going to get deported out the country." And I said, what is this research based upon? I'm someone that actually studies these disciplines, so I'm going to know more information in depth versus someone that's just maybe thought that they heard or know about something that they didn't properly research. And I'm very well studied in this regard, and I have experience and knowing about this. I'm going to know and be able to tell you. But like I said, I can't force people to believe me, but I do have supporting documentation. However, behind what I share, by the way, I've gone over that, and I encourage you guys to make your own assessment, evaluation. And I know nowadays people are bombarded by tons of information, so some people don't feel like doing the research behind something, but it's important if you want to find out if something is credible or not. It's to research it in depth and brainstorm. Have an open mind. Use critical thinking. I said use critical thinking and look deeper. That's why I was referred to as a forensic researcher. I take a microscopic look at things. I go more in depth, by the way. So let me see if I read some of the rest of the comments. Okay. Brian says, I kind of knew the cabal had a part of stalling of the wealth transfer. Yes, there's no doubt. I agree with you. Secret Balance says, in some countries, they are using government-backed bonds to back crypto. Interesting. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised because they've changed. That's another thing they've done. They've secretly behind the scenes, they've changed the whole banking system around. By the way, they started on this around a decade ago, a little over a decade ago. Actually, it's been going on. It's been evolving, but they did a major drastic change over a decade ago. Secret Balance says, that's where I'm at. Yep. He says redress right. Okay. Brian says, Dorsey, do you file taxes? A very good question. Very, very good question. Now, there was some videos that I've done. I'll give you a hint. I've actually gone over this. I don't talk about it too much because we know we have very bad people. I've warned you guys about gatekeepers, cabal people, so I don't put some of my personal business out there, how I do certain things. But I have covered this topic in private consultations. So if you guys want to know me for serious inquiries, or they call bookings, my Gmail address is should be in the what do you call that? The description section after the video uploads, or you can check previous videos if you want to know things like this from me, where I go more in depth about those types of things. But there are laws, I can tell you for sure, because I'll say my job, for example, they went under a different company, and I'll tell you this story. I'll at least share this with you. They had an individual that accessed my records. I was actually looking into hiring a what do you call a law firm, or they had paralegals, and they dealt with because you have law firms that specialize in like workplace abuse. You know, different law firms some specialize in injury, and I really don't want to contract with lawyers, attorneys, because for the reason when you also hire them, for the little bit that I know, you're also giving up power of attorney. If you've heard of that before, I've done videos in the past where I talked about what's that called? How they use legalese in the legal system. That's used to replace plain English. That's been done on purpose to dumb you down so they have an advantage over you, the courts. But it's another trick to keep the majority of the population, not knowing, understanding. That's why they took Latin out the school system. Many years ago, they used to have Latin in the schools. My older relatives took it and confirmed it with me. Yes, because a lot of the court system, the language, like the parent language of English, other languages, Latin, if you understand Latin, you can understand the trickery, because some of these English terms we use have multiple meanings, or has a different meaning altogether pertaining to the court system. So make a long story short, when it came under a new company, I had a situation where there were certain, you can legally avoid taxes. Now, the thing where you can get caught up with, and this is not, I did give a disclaimer, so this is not tax advice. If you mention evade, that can get you in some trouble. But you can't legally avoid. There's certain, and it depends on what types of taxes. And I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine's wife. She's an accountant. And I say, I don't like to seem like sometimes the information I go over is so powerful, it can seem to another person that you're trying to take rank over them or that you're a know-it-all. I want to say I'm not a know-it-all, but I have experience. And not just experience, I had supporting documentation to back up what I did. And I was so good at the time, some years ago, it was the previous company. I called them up and I told them something that I'll just I won't go into all the details, but I'll let you guys read between the lines. And I quoted the law to the person they worked for the human resource department at the time. And I said, based on this. And they said, okay. It took them a while because the company, I looked at one of my check stubs and they still weren't, trying to be compliant. Then I had to call them back. I went above their head than I had contacted at the time. And at that time, the individual was a male human resource person. He was over the same department. He actually had the same last name as Mueller, the guy who did that investigation on Trump, by the way. Had the same last name, by the way. And I went over what the law was. I knew it off the top of my head, so I didn't have to submit any of the paperwork. This is when you get so good at this stuff. I've never really told you guys the story because, like I said, I keep some of my personal business private because there's gatekeepers out there. There's minions. They will try to sabotage, and there's other things for security purposes. I don't go into details, but I'll shed a little light with you. Of course, I go into more details when I do private consultations and things of that sort. Only most of the time when people ask me these types of questions, because I don't know what a person's going to ask me. I've had consultations on all different topics, and people come away satisfied too. I ask people at the end, do they feel like I went over the information? And sometimes I've even used other people. For example, if I didn't know or wasn't knowledgeable in the area, some of my sources that were able to basically gave me the answer to answer my client's question. So what I did was I had this personnel went into my records and did something. And I actually figured out something I won't go into details about. But the previous company that I worked for, I went over the law and I didn't have to submit any paperwork because I knew it. I had it in my head verbally and explained it to them in a very short way. And they knew what they were doing and went in there. And I won't say, and I actually went over this on one of Yusuf because somebody mentioned his name in the chat. I actually called in on his show some years ago when he was on high frequency radio and shared this with him because somebody asked us a question on a call similar to this comment. But I didn't mean to go off like kind of in a tangent, but my friend's wife, who's an accountant, got into a really big debate with her because she didn't understand when we found out about this information some years ago. Every dollar you spend is actually a form of a tax. The IRS has a relationship not only with the Treasury, but the Federal Reserve. I read this in documents many years ago, referred to the investigative journalist Barton Butts. That's why a lot of that old school information that a lot of the so-called patriot gurus will go over with Barton Butts, Winston Strout, Rice McLeod, Patrick Devine. A lot of the information, if you understood some of the basics, a lot of the basic information back then would help you understand the fundamentals of the fraud that they're committing. They're using deception and trickery. By the way, you guys may not understand this, but it's a form of a major deception and trickery that's being used. By the way, And unless you understand, there's also, it was mentioned to me, and I read the comments from time to time. Some people said, well, there's two different types of laws. You have the legal government and the lawful government. The legal government, in one regard, has enslaved the lawful government because the majority rules. For example, Jordan Maxwell, rest in peace to, he also went by the name The Godfather. Jordan Maxwell, great researcher, stated in this documentary that I saw, and if I find it, I would like to upload this so you guys can see this. This was given to me many years ago by another mentor I had when I woke up to this information. Jordan Maxwell mentioned in this documentary, you have what's called consensus reality nowadays. The consensus is like if a group of people, let's say 1,000 people, believe that an orange is an apple and an apple is an orange, even though the color of an orange is, it has this unique color. It's like an apple is red. But he said that's called consensus reality, where they're not going by the actual reality that an orange is an orange. It's not an apple, for example. So you have the legal government. There's a difference between legal and lawful. Like it's legal for the police to pull you over, but it's not lawful. It may not be lawful. And lawful more so deals with common law, the equity side of government. I'm giving you guys something powerful that's not more so non-statutory, which has a superior jurisdiction if you know how to operate. Operate, you may say, what do I mean by operate? How to do commerce, how you contract. You have to understand the situation that you're in. If it's a legal situation, these are things you will learn about or know about if you were generally if you're a pro se litigant, proper persona, and you're very well studied. So my friend's wife, because she's indoctrinated with the college system, through the college system, which a lot of people are, and they're going to brainwash the people that come through there. They're going to think a certain way, and they're going to tell them things to spook them away from stuff that pertains to the outside, because they have a system that's set up that also wants to keep people brainwashed, even their gatekeepers within that system, so they can keep making money off of them as well. And it's also a form of not just making money, but it's a form of control, to keep control in a certain regard. So you got to understand that as well. But it depends on how you're operating. But there's laws out there, just like people ask the question, someone, for example, you ask, do you file taxes? And someone can ask the question similarly, do you have to get vaccinated? You know, it may depend. But what does the actual law say? You know, what does Title VII of the Civil Rights Act talk about? If you don't research these things and you just go by what your job tells you or what somebody tells you, even if it's their policy, but is their policy the law? You see, there's a difference. The law supersedes policy. But you might need to know how to file the correct paperwork. If that entity takes action against you or denies you something, you have to know. So this is how some of these things, these questions and things can be subjective. But I told her, I blew her mind away. And a while ago, and I told my friend about this, who he's married to. I said, she didn't know about the national debt clock at one time. And she was scared when I first told her that we were getting into a debate about something. I said, look up go to nationalusdebtclock.org. It has a breakdown of the national debt. And she was shocked when she saw this. Do you know, I read in earlier documents, they said all the citizens that have been pledged as collateral are supposed to owe that debt. So when there may come a point in time, a day, when they call upon that debt to be paid back, who's supposed to pay that debt back? And is there a method to how they may want to punish citizens of people for paying the debt back by putting them maybe in concentration camps or work? You've heard of work labor camps. Or how about it's a form of slavery going on now, that you work any type of 9 to 5 that you're paying yourself out of your trust, because they're tapping into your your exemption account, but you're being blocked somehow from accessing it. Isn't that deep? You know, so you have to think about these things when I went over. Just because somebody presents some information that may seem like it's outside of the box doesn't mean that it's not real. And I wasn't trying to be a peanut or a a-hole or nothing like that. I was just asking her to think. But I said, I read this document many years ago. All the dollars that you spend when you go buy things at the grocery store, you know, when they call it a sales tax, that's just a percentage out of the whole amount. For example, why does it say 6%? I said, I'm not going to mention her name, but I said, think about it, so-and-so. Why is that percentage out of the entire amount? The whole amount is actually a tax. By the way, you would be shocked when you find out where the funds are actually going to. Some of you guys I know are familiar with the research that some of those funds are going to England, or at the time when the Queen was alive, was going to the Crown, because the United States is a subsidiary corporation under England. If you study the history behind corporations, how corporations were invented, how were corporations formed? What did they get? They got their charters out of where? From England. You've heard of charters before. Like when someone wants to start a lodge or chapter or something. There's a connection. Charters come from this. We get corporations connected to the charters that come out of England. There's a history behind that. There's a methodology. So people have to think. When sometimes people just run off at the mouth, and when they're not knowledgeable of something, they'll accuse something of being a scam. They say, yep, crypto's a scam. Or that sovereign citizen, oh, you got to watch that, without doing any research whatsoever. They'll just go by. And that's what I tell a friend of mine. People, you have to do their research if you're going to challenge somebody on something. But don't always assume that do research. That's why I give a disclaimer. And I tell you guys in my disclaimer, I encourage you all to please do your own homework and research so you can make your own assessment, own evaluation, and maybe you can come to the conclusions that I'm able to come to. I'm just simply a messenger. I can't force you guys to believe what I believe. But that was a good question, Brian. But something I kind of spoke in code, but I won't go as in depth about. But I just shared, there's information that I have, and there's a really powerful website out there that's been around for a while. I'll give you this jewel. Since I woke up back in 2004, it's called famguardian.org, also known as SEDM, Sovereign Education Defense Ministry. Sovereign Education Defense Ministry, SEDM.org, or type in famguardian.org. Last I've checked, it was around since I was when I first woke up to this information back in 2004. And the guys, they were heavy hitters, meaning they were very knowledgeable. One of the guys I used to call up, he had experience going up against judges, battling them. He was actually put on a form of a local do not detain list in the city of Detroit. I won't say his name. I have said his name in previous videos to thank him, to give a shout out to, because he didn't have to do this years ago. He was married at the time, but very knowledgeable, very well studied brother. Gave me kind of some of the basics. One of the examples I kind of just went over with you guys. He's the one that gave me the example how the legal government, to a degree, has enslaved the lawful government because the majority rules, and they're using consensus reality sometimes. Well, that's where it's up to we the people, and it's a threat when more people are waking up and are learning the real laws and learning how to remove themselves from those contracts accordingly, so they can take back their sovereignty, their freedom. Because sovereignty just simply means to be self-governed. By the way, there's no such thing as sovereign citizen. When they put the words, just like conspiracy theory, those are two separate words. A citizen is a subject or a slave, so you can't be a sovereign citizen. You see, that's an oxymoron, because a sovereign, if you look up, is a potentate, a king or queen. Someone that's free means to be self-governed. But to govern your own commercial affairs means you're free. That's why I never claimed I was a sovereign, because people don't understand what they're talking about. Just like the term conspiracy theory was invented by the CIA years ago. They created it when they covered up the Kennedy assassination. And they came up with the story with the Patsy Lee Harvey Oswald. When they created that, they created the term conspiracy theory. That's why when they always accuse someone of being a conspiracy theorist, think of whoever the number one conspiracy theorists are out there. Someone who they accuse, those are the people they don't want you listening to. Not saying that these people may be 100% correct all the time, or you might not agree with them on everything. But if you listen overall to what they're saying, or they could be warning you about, you need to pay close attention to. Because I'm gonna tell you, I don't trust the local media. I don't trust the mainstream media. I still watch them from time to time because I want to see what lies they're up to or what propaganda that they're trying to push. You see. So you guys, I think I've laid a picture you can read between the lines. Secret Balance says, yes, I totally understand. We need to unify. Okay. Ron T says, the court system don't want to put anything on the land record. It was hard for me to file my affidavit of life. I heard that there actually was a site I just found out about. Since I'm at the plantation, I'm not on my computer. If I was on my desktop computer, I would look in my bookmark. I just heard from, because I still pay attention to other people that teach, and someone has shared on another channel that I follow. I actually had sent some of my subscribers over to. I gave a shout out to. I've even been on before. Someone has shared there's a site that you can pay for that can get your stuff filed in the county. I think in any state, wherever you're at, they act as a third party, because a lot of stuff is going online now because, of course, because of the pandemic that took place, they're trying to get people prepared for the New World Order. That's actually pre-preparation to condition people, because they're going to bring in another pandemic out here sometime in 2025. I've heard it's going to be called something else. So they're getting people prepared to do things from a distance, where they don't even want you coming in person and stuff like that. So there's a site. If I knew offhand, I would. You can check into. Maybe if I do another video, Ron T, I can cover that. If you make a note, I can find that site, because I bookmarked it. I said that was some good information, because I know people have had the similar problem here. I actually have a connect with one of my sources that told me he knows somebody that works down there that can get stuff filed, by the way. But I just haven't, at the time, I didn't have the funds to do my status correction through one person. I was looking at other processes, and I've already started on some other advanced processes in the past that I didn't finish. I have some declarations set up as well, and I have things filed, ran in the newspaper. I have some affidavits, they also call declarations, filed in other paperwork, and I've got to update some filings and things too, by the way. Secret Balance says taxes are voluntary. Yes, I agree. Yeah, some people can't handle that, where they don't understand kind of what I was talking about, referring to that question earlier, because I didn't want to get into tax advice, by the way. That's why I said I would have to talk about those types of things more privately, and I just would encourage one if they wanted to know more information about that. I had a consultation with someone actually that's located in the state that asked me, and I was able to even help. They were connected to another channel that I noticed information that I gave to them. This other big channel talked about the information I shared with them. And that's something I actually had success with, by the way, experience, and I've used this procedure out of state. So that's something I do know for sure. So you don't have to worry about me beating around the bush or nothing like that. If you set up a consultation with me and you wanted to know, like dealing with your employer, what to do in that regard. And there's a difference between, for example, employees versus being a private contractor as well, like doing a 1099 miscellaneous. There's a difference, because the other way, these companies, they're also behind the scenes acting as I found out, taking power of attorney over people without them even knowing. acting as withholding agents for the IRS. Because I even have the law in the state of Michigan that says wage garnishments are illegal without a court order signed by a judge. By the way, I do have that law. It's MCL 600.6231. MCL stands for Michigan Compiled Law. And if you know about the MCLs and the MCRs, the MCLs, police officers, lawyers, judges, they're supposed to follow the Michigan court rules and the Michigan compiled laws. Evidence of this, I tell a friend of mine, proof, and you don't have to be a lawyer if you know what you're doing, because there was actually a law one of my sources found where you don't have to have a license to practice the law, to use the law, but you still have to know what you're doing. Like if you get hard in the court, stuff like that, because they have ways to try to jam you up, trap you, which we know I won't go into because that's neither here nor there. But to share with a friend of mine how it's real, we were in Costco one time, and they sell some type of alcohol in there, and they had a sign that said pursuant, it was MCL, that stood for Michigan Compiled Law. Based on this MCL, they could not sell alcohol to minors. It said below, I think, the age of 21 or something like that. That showed Costco wanted to give public notice. That's part of due process of law, to give public notice they were not allowed to sell alcohol, and they mentioned the MCL. A lot of times years ago, and this is how criminals sometimes, when you're dealing with these government entities, I dealt with this. I didn't used to have problems, but years ago with the Secretary of State, I used to put all rights reserved on my driver's license, which was originally it was UCC 1-207, and it got updated, changed to Uniform Commercial Code 1-308. But my mentor that taught me years ago encouraged me to use the state statute, which was MCL 440.1308, that dealt with reservation of rights, reservation of your signature, actually. That meant in connection with my signature, I have reserved my common law right not to be compelled to perform under any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter into knowingly, voluntarily, intentionally, and furthermore, I do not accept the compelled benefit of any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. That's Uniform Commercial Code 1-308, which is codified in Michigan Compiled Law 440.1308. Well, tell me why the Secretary of State and the state of Michigan some years back illegally, criminally stopped the line, myself and others, and this happened in other states, to sign this on your driver's license and try to come out with a document from the headquarters in Lansing, try to say it's against our policy. But your policy is not the law. Who gave you delegation of authority over my commercial affairs? Ma'am, Mrs. Gatekeeper, are you lawyering? Miss Gatekeeper, why are you not allowing me to sign my name this way? You see, did they have delegation of authority? But see, you have laws right already on the books, and these criminals. So I feel you guys' pain. I've been through this myself, but I just gave you guys the actual law. But most people, there's a level I would have to take it to. You may have to print up the law, have it on you, and then if they refuse to, a lot of people would maybe follow up going through this, which I didn't at the time, where you would have to call the police or your local sheriff who would have jurisdiction and get the name of the person who refused you, because that person working at that Secretary of State, they're supposed to be public servants. They work for, in the public, they work for the state, but they don't have delegation of authority, because they were trying to say, they weren't trying to refuse you to say, well, we came up with a policy. Once again, remember, a policy is not a law when it's already on the books that you can reserve your right, because the driver's license, which you have to sign a document, now that they digitize, even though it's electronic, it's still a contract, which that law gives you the right to reserve your rights. You see how criminal this is? I had to explain this in this manner. So you have to stop gatekeepers like that. And unfortunately, you may have to even sue them or take them to small claims court, but get the name and explain to the police officer, file a police report up there. But one of the times,
You know, some instances I heard they did this to other people. They hit the button on you and sends the secret button and send the police like to intimidate you. But you simply explain they're violating your right, but because you know you went there for a service and they're going to their boss who's also a fellow gatekeeper and they don't understand they're actually breaking the law by not allowing you to sign that way when it's actually a law on the books that says you have the right to sign your name. And that's on the legal statutory side. They're supposed to go by the codes. Because think about it. I just said it. The police officers, the lawyers and judges in Michigan, for example, you have to find out which the laws are for your own state. But I know for here, they're supposed to go by the MCLs and the MCRs. So the police, when they used to pull my driver's license up, when they would see my picture, they used to see all rights reserved on there, along with my photo. They were like, "Whoa, we're not gonna fuck with him." You know what I'm saying? Excuse my French, but they was because they saw obviously the driver's license is a form of a contract. And I actually spoke to a branch manager at a Secretary of State. I didn't really follow up as much as I should have because they told me you have to file a complaint in Lansing, which is the capital of the state. That's their headquarters, because they were breaking their own law. As I'm explaining to you guys, you can look up. And we had a nice, polite conversation, and she understood where I was coming from and told me. I think she said you can file a complaint at any branch, but you have to make sure you get that branch number. Because one time I had a separate incident, and the ladies got scared because I asked for their branch number. So a lot of people don't follow through on stuff like this. But I kind of partially follow through. But you have to go through the state, and it's like the fox guard in the hen house. And if you guys remember what happened in 2020, if I find more pro se litigants out there, people that understood, and that's why we the people have to fight, because they're taken away criminally. And that's even on the public side. They're doing something illegal that they're, supposed to go by. So that's why I told you guys that story. That's some experience I have dealing with where gatekeepers openly were violating the law. A lot of times these are women, by the way. And they tried to say some years later they came up with this letter, but that policy is not the law. If they didn't pass a law, you have the right to reserve your signature pursuant to MCL. That's in reference to Michigan Compiled Law 440.1308. That's where the UCC statutes are codified at. They start with 440. Look it up if you're in Michigan. Because there's another UCC code, Uniform Commercial Code, that talked about how the laws, your local statutes, had to be in harmony. I think that might have been UCC 1-103. Don't quote me on it. You have to look it up. This is not legal advice, but you don't have to be a lawyer to enforce these laws, these codes. That's what they're supposed to go by. But you have a criminal government or gatekeepers, and they're not being compliant, and they work in the public. So you have to ask the question, who gave them delegation of authority to make a legal determination your affair? And that's actually what a lady, when I used to be a security guard years ago at a grocery store, she told me basically similarly, and she knew I got scared at the time because she said, "What's your bond number?" It woke me up. This is before I knew about any of this information. And she said, "You're lawyering." I said, "Ma'am, please give me your receipt." Because by state law, I don't know the specific statute, but they always used to tell us if a customer refuses to show their receipt in the state of Michigan, they can refuse to show you by law. So the clients, which were the merchants, the big stores like Home Depots, the Walmarts, etc., the Targets, the Kmarts of the world, will hire these security guards as a theft deterrent to ask the customers to politely. Most people don't know, they just turn over their receipt, but there's actually a law. And we always used to deal with a certain amount of customers that used to always refuse to show me their receipt, until one day I used to come across and now I understand that those were the early sovereigns, the people they call sovereign citizens. But they were people that knew the law. And I thank these people, they helped wake me up. And it was a couple women. One of the ladies, I think both of them used to have locks, dreadlocks. One of them had, and one of them challenged me one day, and she said, "What is your?" She said, "You're a lawyer now." She started going, and she was like, "What is your bond number?" I thought she was going to sue me, which someone can do if they know how to do. So I backed off. I said, "Yep." My supervisor did say Lieutenant Nicholas at the time, if they can refuse according to Michigan law, they don't have to show you their receipt. So I gave you guys a real life example. These are some basic legal situations, I was involved in. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I'm going to get ready to shut things down. By the way, let's see, got a few more questions in here. Okay, Brian says, is it true that the IRS is being transferred over to the U.S. Treasury? Yes, that is true. Yep, they're being absorbed. They actually passed something where I don't have time to go into details about it. It's actually passed by Congress already. There's a resolution, HR 25, where we're supposed to be going to like a certain types of taxes with your employer are supposed to be changing, where they're supposed to be going to like a flat tax or flat rate, like 18% or something, like all those different taxes that were broken up. Some changes are supposed to be coming, but I don't know when that's going to be implemented, allegedly, by the way. So Secret Balance says, do you know about arbitration? Check out Bradley Christopher Starks Act. Okay. Thank you. Says 60 to Pope, 40 to Queen. Okay. Says due diligence. Yes. Says Chris Hauser is on to private banking. Yes, I'm familiar with Chris Hauser. Yes. And I'm familiar with a lot of the older Patriot gurus like Winston Shrout, Patrick Devine. They talked about private banking as well, where I understood elements of it, that the UCC financing statement was taught in a college class called business law. And there's books, and the chapter that dealt with UCC financing statements were called secure transactions. So they try to hide this, how to do commerce from it. Try to hide this from the general public. See, you guys look this up. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Kangaroo Jack says, how about the dong? Is that a scam? It's pretty much along the same lines, but definitely no, I can tell you from experience that there's people that purchased at Chase Bank, other entities that picked up actual receipts. So if someone called it a scam, then how would the bank be allowed to sell it? If it was a scam, that would mean that Chase Bank is in on the fraud as well, or the scam. See, people got to distinguish between what are actual legitimate scams. I talk about legitimate information. That's a good question, Kangaroo Jack, because I meant to go over too. If the banks, which I confirmed with private sources, if they sold it, how was this a scam? If that would mean they were in on it. Just something to think about, because people are always quick to accuse something of being a scam. Have you ever thought about you were born into a scam? When you were born in this world, who said the birth certificate was ethical or moral? They said you were competent at the time when you were incompetent because your parents unknowingly signed you over as wardens of the state. They acted as informants through the certificate of manifest, which that birth certificate, the origin history of it derives from where the captain of the Port Authority many years ago had to provide a certificate of manifest, like similar to your driver's license, the weight, the height of the ship, which your color of your eyes, like your driver's license depicts, with your eyes, your skin color, or your race, these things, according to years ago, where they got these concepts from. Yep. Ron T says, I know there's a way around federal taxes, but do you have to pay state taxes where you work at? I can't answer that question. You have to set up a private consultation, and I can go more in depth. I'll answer all of those questions. Any questions you have. Some of those questions are too public to mention over the public airways, I think. In my opinion, I have experience in that regard. And then you have to know because see, with some people, you have to know, you want to know, have the evidence on you. I'll just leave it at that. Basically, the laws of material. And if you're not prepared, you can put yourself in harm's way. Wednesday Adams says, hi, thank you for joining Wednesday. Juan Carlos Zapta Alvarez says, pro se markers, you're a barrister. Okay. Um, okay, good intel. Says sui juris is competent age of majority. Okay, that's what they say. Sui juris is competent age of majority. Okay, yep. See, I have to get more well studied myself. Says jurisdiction and pro se. Okay. Yes. See, thank you. And that's why a lot of the Latin community were at those Pastor Tony King seminars. And I'm gonna tell you, they had a translator on their behalf, by the way, meaning they had people that may have been, that's why I kind of understood the elite's agenda between bringing migrants, immigrants, foreigners to America, because that private event I attended some years ago when they played favoritism with certain people. And that's why another reason, because what I was going to say, the Latin culture is closer basically to the Hispanics, people of Latin origin. A lot of times they speak that language, they have an understanding as well. There's people that were knowledgeable, but the rest of us were basically left hanging. There's a deeper aspect to this. How the ruling class elite separators put a caste system in place, put categories, and they use division. A friend of mine told me they did do this divide and conquer thing on purpose to make other races, other groups compete against one another and try to make people angry at one another too. I meant to go over that as well. So I'm aware they use division. He said that's why they play favoritism on purpose, was also to divide people too. But I'll leave you guys with that. I appreciate you guys rocking with me, joining. Hopefully I answered the question of the topic. I was able to answer you guys other questions, by the way. The topic of this video originally was, is the Iraqi Dinar Global Reset a scam? My last time addressing this issue. So hopefully I don't have to talk about this. I went over enough evidence, I feel, but I always encourage you guys, do your research, do your homework, as in a disclaimer. So with that said, if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Parler at Dorsey's Resource, Minds.com at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on True Social at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Rumble. Check me out on Rumble. I just recently uploaded a video that was removed just last year, and another video I plan on uploading soon for content on Rumble. And down the road, I may be able to do some more in-depth discussions that they won't let me talk about over here. So thank you guys. Appreciate you all rocking with me. The marathon will continue. Legends never die. They stay in our hearts. Until next time, deuces. I'm out.